Welcome to the Heartbeat for Hire podcast. I'm your host, Lindsay Dowd. My goal is to help train leaders and sales organizations how to manage and deliver results with empathy, compassion, and kindness. Let's get started. Attention, visionary leaders. Are you ready to elevate your leadership style and create an exceptional workplace that stands out from the crowd? I'm here to introduce you to a game-changing resource that will transform the way you lead and shape your company culture. It's time to embrace the power of top-down culture. This practical guide empowers your leadership for lasting success, helping you create a workplace where everyone thrives. Get top-down culture today, and let's reshape the future of leadership together. Greetings and welcome to this episode of Heartbeat for Hire. I couldn't be more excited to bring you our guest today. Dr. Julia A. West is a licensed clinical psychologist, executive coach, and director of science and content at Limitless Minds. With over a decade-long career in clinical psychology and health psychology, she is a seasoned expert in unlocking mental performance, fostering resilience, and promoting well-being. She's also owner of both a private practice providing psychological treatment services and the owner of a private executive coaching practice. Her distinguished career has led her to work with industry giants such as US Bank, DocuSign, Workday, Pfizer, MassMutual, and numerous integrated healthcare networks, enhancing team dynamics and collaboration through resilience and mindset training. Her motto, Memento Mori, is a constant reminder to make every moment count, and it mirrors her passion for her work, her family, and the joy she finds in life's simple pleasures. Welcome, Julia. So happy you're here.
Oh, thank you so much.
It is such a treat to have you here. And we are going to get into all things leadership and mindset. But first, for those that don't know you, could you give us a little background and share your story?
Sure. So it's great to be here. I am a mom first, and also a clinical psychologist with a background in, clinical psychology, treatment for eating disorders, health psychology, integrated care. And, I sort of made this pivot in my career right around the time of the pandemic to be leaving academic medicine and transitioning to industry and business. And the reason I did that is because I really wanted to have an impact at a different aspect of the spectrum of well-being and performance and mental health. I had a long history in helping people at their worst, and that is incredibly meaningful to me on so many levels, professional and personal. And I felt like I had more to give in helping people get to their best. And so that's why I made the transition. While I still attach myself to some roots in my clinical work, it's been really, really neat to expand to executive coaching and to helping organizations.
So I love that intentional pivot. And I made a big intentional pivot too during the pandemic. So I can completely relate to that. And I just want to really kind of highlight something you mentioned, which was leadership mindset. And we had Josh Lifrak on the show before, and he talks about mindset, and he came from an athletics world. But I love that you pivoted to business, because this is a topic that I don't think gets enough attention. It's starting to, and I'm thrilled about it. But talk about why leadership mindset, as it relates to mental health, as it relates to psychology, is even relevant and important and something that leaders should be thinking about.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so you mentioned my good buddy, Josh. We work together on a daily basis over at Limitless Minds. One of the things that I've noticed in my transition into, helping organizations and helping, professionals is that, every piece of advice, every time somebody comes to you with a problem, every time you want to approach an issue with colleagues or direct reports, the way you show up, your attitude, your energy, the way you communicate matters almost more than what it is that you actually say.
I say this all the time. Right? Yeah, how you say it's more important than the words. Yeah.
I think this quote has been attributed to Maya Angelou, but people don't remember what you say as much as they remember how you made them
Made them
feel.
feel. Yeah.
And if you as a leader aren't in touch with and aware of your biases, your defaults, how your reactions contribute to the setting and context around you,
Yeah.
you are not going to be able to show up for the people that you lead in a way that makes room for them to fulfill their potential and them to bring their whole selves to what it is that they're doing.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's such we're in this time of an awakening right now because there is such a really wonderful moment for mental health. We've never been in this landscape before, and it's never crept into business. It's always been, that's personal, that's separate. You deal with that, and then you come to work. And now we're connecting all of this because you can't be your best self if you're only showing up, or if you're showing up and things are really heavy on your heart or heavy in your head, and you need those moments to kind of collect yourself before you can come back and be your best.
Absolutely. And I agree with everything that you just said. And I'm so excited to be at this moment in time when, people are studying and researching the truth of what you just said. I think so many of us, particularly, the heartbeat folks among us, right?
Yes.
We've known this to be true in our guts and our hearts for a long time. It's, as a scientist and researcher myself, it's incredibly exciting to see that being borne out in the research and in the findings. I think for somebody like me, one of the things I became aware of, not just as a psychologist, but also as a person, is, I can't show up as my best without showing up very authentically. And for me, a lot of times that means wearing my heart on my sleeve, right? And that's tricky, right? It's tricky to be able to do that and negotiate a way that your emotions don't run your life, but you allow them to inform how you show up and how you lean into your strengths. And so one of the things that I really like doing myself, but then I also like helping people do this, so I coach people to do this, is to really make their mess their message, right? And that's something I've done.
Oh, I love that soundbite. That's so good.
It's true, right? Like we've all been through something. And, as we teach resilience, as I train on mindset, as I train on resilience, one of the things that keeps coming up for me again and again is people have so many of these skills already. They might not be using them. They might not be tapping into them or uncovering them. And so a lot of what I feel like I do and what a lot of coaches do is they help people tap into the strengths they already have and leverage them for good, right? It's not necessarily just about teaching new things. It's about helping people see what they've already been through in their lives as fuel and strength for moving ever more forward.
Well, I love how you said, make your mess your message, because I teach this too. And taking that vulnerable thing that happened to you, I always say it's the worst thing that ever happened to you, either in your career or in your life, and talk about that moment, but talk about your growth, talk about how it changed you and what you learned from it, because that makes you memorable. It makes you interesting, and it shows incredible strength. It shows that you're capable of learning, you're capable of growth. And that's just such an important quality for everyone to have. I don't care where you are, whether you're a waitress or a CEO or whatever in between, you have to learn how to talk about yourself, and claiming that as your power is so important. So, we talk about resilience on this show, and you have quite a story of resilience yourself. I mean, not only do you help patients with their own struggles, you've had your own. So would you share some of your story?
I would be honored to share it. And actually I think all of us, right, Lindsay, we all have various stories of resilience throughout our lives.
Oh yeah.
Made it to a certain age, you got them, whether we talk about them or not. And so I'm going to take a chance today, and I'm going to talk about a resilience story that usually I keep in the shadows. It's actually, this is the first time I've ever talked about this one publicly. I have other stories of resilience that I've sort of told myself are more fit for like public consumption. But, the truth is, if we're going to lead by example, we actually have to lead by example, right? And I train on resilience and authenticity. So I want to share, one of the stories of resilience in my life started when I was 14. That was the year I started the Slim Fast diet, which I know. I mean, I feel like in 2023, the idea of a 14-year-old on Slim Fast diet is crazy. It wasn't as crazy when I started this, but like for many young girls, that rapidly turned into an eating disorder.
Yeah.
And I was from 14 to 17, it sort of progressed from having Slim Fast for lunch to throwing out lunch to, not really eating dinner to never eating breakfast, and on and on and on it went. And it turned into a years long, probably decade long, really severe eating disorder that was accompanied by all kinds of things that happen to people when they have eating disorders: anxiety, trauma, depression, all of those. And, so over the years, I ended up, I was in a locked unit, like a psychiatric locked unit, residential treatment for eating disorders, partial hospitalization treatment for eating disorders. It was a really dark and scary 10 years of my life. And imagine this is like 14 to 24.
Oh, and there's so many questions at that age. There's so much doubt. There's so much insecurity. And thank you for sharing.
I had them all. I had them all.
And
right.
most teenagers do, boys and girls.
Yeah.
But to compound that struggle of just being a teenager with all of those physical and psychological things is really hard. And thank you for sharing this here.
No, it's my honor to share it. It's my honor to share it. It's like one of those things that it felt strange to me for a long time to be a psychologist that had all these issues, right? And I had these issues prior to becoming a psychologist, but I was in graduate school before I really got my symptoms under control, right? So there's a lot of this like sense of the public self and the private self.
Sure.
Right. And
wouldn't you just say you're human? I mean, everybody is flawed, right? And
that's how, that's sort of the, it's funny. Over the years, I've gone from being ashamed of it and feeling like I had to hide it to thinking this doesn't make me a bad person, to now realizing, oh, that was for this. I don't think, I really believe this. I don't think I would be as effective as a psychologist or as a coach if I hadn't gone through these things. And I know not everybody processes hard things in their life by finding meaning in them. So I'm not somebody that's going to say, you got to find the silver lining. That's never my approach. For me, that is ultimately where I ended up, is that I started to realize I needed to lean into this to really give power to my message and destigmatize this idea that you're not allowed to have problems.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's been really, once I did that, I mean, I could talk to you about, oh man, it's a 10-year thing, right? It's a 10-year saga. But I think that, for me, the beautiful part of it, there were points while I was really sick that myself and my family, we didn't know if I was going to make it to 20. Whatever it was that was going to take me, like that was a question mark, which is crazy when you think about it, that not all that much after that, I was a provider on some of the same units where I was a patient.
But we see this so often where a child is a cancer patient and they become an oncologist
Yes.
or,
Yeah.
a surgeon. And so it's not such a stretch for me to
Right.
see that you
That's
took
true.
that pain and struggle and turned it into purpose.
Yeah.
And whether you knowingly did it or not, you're here. So take us from
Yeah.
you found health
Yeah.
and you're starting your practice. So then
Yeah.
what?
Yeah. So, for me, it's always been about figuring out and tapping into what are the things that helped me and how can I leverage those to help people like me.
Yeah.
There's this saying in psychology, like that some people believe, you have to be one to treat one. I'm not somebody that believes that. I have been tremendously helped in my journey by people that do not have the same experience as me. But I think that, by distilling what were the things that saved me, I've been able to craft an approach, a framework, a set of skills that apply to people with eating disorders like I had, or in general, that are just going through really tremendously hard times, to tap into those things that saved me and do what little I can to pay it forward to other people, right? So a couple of those things are purpose. For me, and it's funny because like we're talking about turning pain into purpose. Purpose saved me.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I had this therapist who was amazing. She was great. She was with me for 5 really dark years. And she told me once, as I was saying, like, I don't think I'm ever going to get better. Like, I think this is just the way it ends for me.
Mm.
And she said, you will get better when you find something in your life or create something in your life that's more important to you than being thin.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds like super vain and super shallow.
No, I've had guests on my show that haven't had exactly that story. I mean,
yeah.
Siri Lindley, who's one of my friends, who was a world champion triathlete, she was deep, dark depression and throes of OCD, like flipping light switches 100 times a day, like so sick, went and watched a triathlon and said, I'm going to do that.
I remember
she didn't know how to swim. And she became a world champion in 6 years. So I get this. I get this fully. It's so brilliant.
So when she said that at the time, I was like, yeah, right. Like being thin was the, when you have an eating disorder, it's not about body image, which everybody feels like it is. It's not. It's about feeling that you don't get to think of yourself as a good person unless you are increasingly becoming smaller. Mm. So it's not about like, do I look good in this bathing suit? It's, do I get to feel like I'm worthwhile as a person? That's what being thin means to someone with an eating disorder. And so when she said that, I was like, okay, like that sounds great. Like I could be on an inspirational card, ain't gonna work for me. But it did. I started to realize that helping other people gave me a profound sense of purpose and worthwhileness that no number on the scale could ever give me. And I think that is really what changed it for me. And then once I became a mom, I'm going to get emotional talking about it. Becoming a mom for me was like locking the door.
Yeah.
I burned my boats. There was no going back to that because I was fortunate enough to have gone through the worst of it prior to becoming a mom, that by the time I got pregnant, I was able to say, that's not an option for me anymore. I will never do that to my kids. And so they, my kids, and I think so many of us, right, that have kids, like our kids are a tremendous part of our purpose. Right. Whether it's like just being there for them or whether it's living those values that are important to us as we care for them. So for me, those things are connection, compassion, and authenticity. Those things are more important to me than being thin. They were back then when I first started to recover, and they still are. And so that's what fuels me.
Mm.
You know, when we think about your purpose, no matter what your resilience story has been, what I feel like gets people out of their darkest days is what is worth the pain to them.
Yep.
Right?
I
Like
totally agree.
what are you willing to go through hell for?
So I feel like I would be doing a disservice if we didn't ask this question.
Sure.
So I'm a parent of teenagers, and we have a lot of parents that listen to the show. Um, for anybody that has a child that's struggling with an eating disorder, which is unfortunately so common right now, with boys and girls, what's a little bit of advice you give to a parent on how to help, how to handle? And obviously, I know it's a huge landscape, but maybe just some high level.
Oh, of course. So I, here's what I would say. The first reaction that you have, your kid is going to remember. Your kid's going to remember that.
Oh, yeah.
I remember my mom, who is a physician and extremely practical. My mom is as practical as the day is long, and I love her to death. The first thing my mom did was try to force me to eat a meal because that's what
Control. Yeah.
she was shocked. And 4 hours later, she came home from Borders bookstore with 6 books on how to help her child with an eating disorder. Is there one right way? No, there isn't. You're going to make mistakes as that parent. I think that managing your own emotions, did I do this? Is this my fault? Is like, does this mean I'm bad? What does this mean for my kid? All of those things are going to occur to you. And for your child's sake, get yourself some help on that.
Yeah.
My mom did. And it made all the difference in the world within a week. And I would, I grew up in a family that had access to healthcare. So this is a very privileged situation. Within a week of my mom finding out, I had a dietitian, I had a therapist, and my mom, was going to her own therapy on it. And I will be forever grateful to her about that. I think that parents immediately think about getting their kids help. Of course, right? Like I would do the same thing, if one of my boys, had this issue, they forget about getting themselves help. And you need help as the parent when
I
your
don't
kid
think
is going
any
through.
of us are born with the tools of
No,
knowing how to navigate this landscape, and
definitely not.
everybody's journey is different. So
Exactly.
it's
I think that showing up with love, showing up with, hey, I don't know how to fix this, but I am going to be right here with you as we figure out how to help you with this. That is the messaging that I think is the best way forward.
really great advice. Really great advice. Thank you for sharing that. So let's bring it up a little bit. So talk a little bit about Limitless Minds and what you do for them, because I love your title and I'd love for people to understand what Limitless Minds is and what you do.
Well, Limitless Minds is a really amazing organization that's at the forefront of, how do you combine your own mental fitness with your own drive for results in your performance. And so if you want to determine how to up-level your performance, your energy, your presence, and do that with the latest behavioral science techniques and approaches, Limitless Minds is for you. So I love it because it's a chance for me to have a lot more impact than I could have in a one-to-one type of setting. And although I love those micro interactions and I still retain them, it's really neat to do this work at scale because everybody deserves access to how to train their mind to help them live their best life, whatever it is that means for them. And so at Limitless, I get to help people do a lot of the things that I've done at various points in my life, like turn that pain into purpose, tap into intrinsic motivation and a drive for goals. That's one of those things that, even when I was at my sickest, one of the things that kept me going was I had big goals. And, you know, whatever my bad days are now are nothing compared to what they were in the past. And that drives me, right? That gives me fuel. And that's something we work on a lot with folks at Limitless is how do you create a mental performance routine to help you consistently hit your goals and your targets and do so without burning yourself out.
Well, I'm a huge fan of Limitless Minds. I've actually been on your show.
I
I'm
know you
hoping to
have.
do more, but we've had Josh Lifrack and Joanna Lohman and Hannah Pryor is going to be on soon. So, I mean, you guys run a brilliant organization and it's just really fun to have anything to do with it at all. Okay, so let's ask you some other good questions. So what inspires you?
What inspires me? Oh my goodness. Younger generations. I love how accepting younger generations are of the importance of mindset. It is far less of a hill to climb.
Yeah.
With folks that have come up with knowing the importance of this. And it's so beautiful to see because the conversation that you and I are having now isn't a conversation that we could have had 15, 20 years ago. It's just not. And I think that gives me so much hope that, you know, there are these folks that I don't know if I'm at this age yet, but I feel like I'm getting close to the age where you start to hear people complain about like younger generations.
Oh, no, it's happening. And I'm glad you brought this up because I really do think the younger generations get an unfair bad rap.
Absolutely.
And listen, there's always going to be this generational bias of you know, the people following us are so lazy. They're so complacent. I gotta say, I feel differently. I feel that the younger generation, they're so innovative and they're coming at work in a much smarter way. They're not taking circuitous routes to get things accomplished. They're like, why do it that way if I can just do this? And
I love that. And they come in, I think, with more idea of balance, which of course is tricky, right? If you're, you know, I always say, if you find yourself saying, must be nice, when you see somebody taking care of themselves, that's always my inner cue that I'm not taking care of myself.
Yeah.
If I'm looking at somebody else setting boundaries, taking care of themselves, finding that elusive work-life harmony, and my reaction is, must be nice. I have trained myself through mindset training to recognize, ooh, that's not you. That's a judgment. And that is probably at the root because you are not taking care of yourself in a way that you need to be doing so that you could look at that person and say, good for them. They're taking care of themselves. Right. And so how many of us do that? Right. We were raised on, you know, I think a different idea of what it means to be successful, right? Like the hustle culture and everything. And so I think, you know, I see so much opportunity for younger generations and, you know, folks I'm an elderly millennial, Lindsay. Like I'm a geriatric millennial. I swear, this is the label, which just cracks me up. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm a geriatric, you know, person already. So I think that the harmony that we could find between the strengths of our generation, the strengths of the younger generation leaves limitless possibilities.
Agreed. And as a Gen Xer, I'm talking to a millennial and, you know, as Gen Xers, we were judged like crazy.
Yes.
And, you know,
exactly.
And on it goes. But, you know, I think.
But the younger group, man, I get so much juice watching them. I really do.
I'm glad you said that. I think that's so cool. So what would you like your legacy to be?
Oh, man. My values. My 3 core values, and I revisit them often, which is like the Brene Brown type of approach, is that, you know, revisit often and make sure they still fit you. My core values are authenticity, connection, and compassion. And I know that those are still my values because those are the happiest points in my life where I feel that piece of alignment when I'm leaning into those three things. And so if people remember me in whatever I've done, in relationships, in work projects, in collaboration, as someone that they could count on to be herself and be compassionate and drive and facilitate connection, I will be a happy camper.
I love that. Oh, I love that. That's great, great legacy, and you're well on your way. So before we close, I would love you to just give some mindset tips
Yes.
for leaders today, because there's never been a better time to talk about it. There's never been a more receptive time. And I feel like leaders want to grow. They want to change. They want to evolve. And my focus is on the how, and how do we make you better? How do we make you in a position to build trust? How do we help you lead with empathy and compassion if you've never done it before, or if you want to improve? I think it's just so important. So
I love it.
From you.
Well, I have an idea, and it's going to be based on, I was vulnerable today.
Yeah,
right? I was vulnerable
wonderful.
today. And so I know vulnerability at work is a buzzword right now. And I want to take an opportunity to give a tip, a mindset tip on how leaders can be appropriately vulnerable. So I think that there's this misconception. There's this misconception at work. I think that vulnerability means oversharing. And that's not what it means, right? That's not what it means.
Yeah.
How my favorite way for a leader to be vulnerable is to share with their team something that they are working on themselves to improve on. And doing that, when you're a leader, you know this, Lindsay, and most of the listeners, I'm sure, know this too, you have an outsized impact on the people around you. Like what you do, how you respond, what you say, for better or for worse, you have an outsized impact there. And so what you do as a leader by sharing, fronting with, right, starting the conversation about accountability or improvement with, what do you need to be more accountable to? What are you working on? That is so powerful.
I agree.
It sets the stage for everybody else in that room, on that team, to do the same thing.
Well, and what you hit on is so important. And I think there is a terrible misconception when you assume a position of leadership, you are supposed to come to the table knowing everything.
Exactly.
No leader knows everything. And if you do, you are deeply overqualified. But if you come to the table and you say, there are things I don't know, and there's things that I'm working on. First of all, it makes you relatable. It makes you approachable.
There's more evidence that makes you more likable, actually. Nobody likes the know-it-all. Nobody likes that.
And you're a work in progress, as we all are.
You're living what you preach.
That is a slice of authenticity that
share what you're working on.
Share
what you're working on. And also, one of the things that I think that does is it begins to create that ever important psychological safety in your team.
Yes.
So that when you ask for feedback, people are going to feel comfortable giving it to you.
Yeah.
So if you say, what is something I do that makes your job harder? Right? You're going to find stuff out.
Yeah. Well, it's the same. My question is, how can I be the best leader for you? And when you ask that question, it's a super humbling question. You are admitting you don't know everything, and you're going to get different answers from everyone you ask. So, but that information is so paramount.
And if you lead by showing folks that you are, like you said, a continual work in progress, they're going to feel more able to give you honest feedback. And however difficult that is for you to accept, right?
Yes.
That's another thing we help folks with at Limitless Minds. How do you accept hard feedback? How do you make feedback fuel? Like we say, feedback is fuel for champions, right? So that's a beautiful line. Takes work. It takes work to do. So we help people do that. But it starts with honesty on the part of the leader. Like you said, I am imperfect. I am showing up anyway. Let's all be imperfectly great together.
Oh my God. We could talk all day.
I know we could.
But and maybe we'll have to do another one. But thank you so much for being on the show. How do people find you?
So please, you can look me up on LinkedIn. That would probably be the best.
And we'll post your socials, so not to worry.
Oh, fantastic. Great. Yes. And I have a burgeoning Instagram account where I share little tidbits and things I find helpful. So thank you so much. This was such an awesome honor for me to come and talk to you today. I appreciate it. It really does feel like talking with a friend, Lindsay. So thank you.
The pleasure was mine. I hope you all enjoyed this episode of Heartbeat for Hire. Take care of yourselves and stay tuned for more next week. Have a great day. Thanks for listening to Heartbeat for Hire. If you like what you hear, I'd love it if you'd subscribe and leave a 5-star review. To keep the conversation going, you can find me on Insta or at LinkedIn at Lindsay Dowd, H4H, or you can reach me at my website, heartbeatforhire.com. Thanks so much. Have a great day.